2 major fight cards in Texas, plus some breaking news. Next. Please like and subscribe. Help us hit 10,000 subscribers. Leave us a comment. Welcome to the Lone Star Roundup. A lot to get into. Let's start with a recap of this weekend's action. Clutch City was home to one of the most anticipated all-Texas shootouts of the year, as Kurtiss Colvin of Austin and Eddie Ortis of San Antonio met up to renew their always hot San Antonio-Austin rivalry. Kurtiss was Mr. Uwe, was obviously the heavy favorite, and all eyes were on him. In anticipation of seeing something spectacular, as we've gotten used to here in Texas with Kurtiss Colvin from his amateur days, he was stepping in against a relatively unknown Eddie Ortis, a 6-0-2 prospect from San Antonio. Eddie Ortis is a tremendously gifted southpaw, boxer puncher, good pop, like I said, long and rangy at 6'2", 6'3", and Kurtiss Colvin was looking to beat him and catapult him into 2019 going 4-0, but it was not to be, however. There was no, Kurtiss didn't really know what he was walking into. There seemed to be a passing of the torches. The 26-year-old San Antonio caught the attention of Colvin in the first round. He was outboxing him and out-jabbing him from his southpaw stance in the first round. The middle round, rounds 2 to 4, I should say, were highly competitive and tough to score as they matched the athleticism and powerful right hands of Colvin against Ortiz' slick boxing and moving. Very competitive, difficult rounds to score. He was being, Ortiz was outboxing him, out-jabbing him, but Colvin was catching him with right hands. It did appear as we got into the 5th round or so of the 8th round that Ortiz was physically stronger and began to break Colvin down. Going to the final 3 rounds, the fight looked competitive and really up for grabs, and Ortiz took control as Colvin began to fade. Ortiz dominated the round with his jab, and he got to his body attack. I was speaking with Robert Tapia before the fight. He said someone's got to test his body, and Ortiz did that, especially in the later rounds. He really caught his attention, hurt him to the body a few times, had him buckled. Colvin fought hard, though, and in the 8th round, in the 6th, 7th round, Ortiz really dominated. Won those rounds clear. The 8th round, they traded a lot of heavy artillery. It looked like Ortiz had a little more firepower left in the tank. It was a close fight, but around ringside, I thought Ortiz won. Everyone I spoke to thought Ortiz won, and he took the tough unanimous decision. There were scorecards of 7-1, 6-2, and 5-3. Like I said, a lot of close rounds scored. It looked like the judges favored the boxing skill of Eddie Ortiz. This puts Ortiz into an interesting position. He's 7-0-2. And he has a name now over a real opponent. He's got a quality win that this is gonna catapult him into, prospect territory where he's someone that we're gonna have our eye on. The problem is he's a 6'2", maybe 6'3" southpaw, who's offensively responsible, boxes well, moves, and has good pop. That's going to make it difficult for him to find other contenders to build his star on. I mean, I'm not sure how many promoters out there want to risk putting their, let's say, 12-0 contender, 12-0 prospect in the ring with someone like Eddie, seeing what he possesses. He went in there and he outboxed Kurtiss Colvin. Kurtiss is an excellent fighter, has a lot on the ball. Kurtiss wanted a rematch. Ortiz seemed open to it. We'll see what happens. I'd like to see a rematch. I'd like to see Eddie try to stay active this year. Fight 3-4 times this year. I'd like to see him fight 4 times against Ortiz and against Colvin and against increasingly difficult competition. But this is definitely a fight to keep your eye on. Every time Colvin put his foot on the gas, he said he was able to raise the stakes and go a little higher. He told us that he thought Colvin was overlooking him, or he knew Colvin was overlooking him. And he really did. He, the first round, I thought he caught Kurtiss's attention by being outboxed. So Colvin had no idea what he was walking into and the skill level of this fighter. And I was talking to Carlos Famosa before the fight, who had trained him for a period of time, and he had basically, I walked into this fight saying this is going to be a 50-50 fight, and Famosa, who had trained him for a while, knew that as long as Eddie fought smart and didn't trade with him too much and respected his power, that he could outbox him, and that's what he did. I want to get into something else. The co-main event of this fight, the relentless Randy the Hitman Fuentes pulled a major upset and improved his record to 8-7-1. I told other ringside media who wasn't familiar with Randy at the time that this is the best 7-7 fighter you'd ever seen. Well, now he's 8-7, and he stopped a prospect named Craig Callahan, who was 17-1. Was originally from Liverpool, England, now living and training with Bobby Benton in Houston. This was a prospect that Benton had his was building a star and thought that he had a real future. Randy Fuentes beat him down. I beat the brakes off him. It was a constant battle of bull versus matador, and it was where the bull was just broke down the matador. Fuentes brutally broke Callahan's jaw, causing him to retire in 44 seconds of the 5th round. But before that, you saw Fuentes really chopping down his man. Fuentes pulled an upset over Kenton Scipio Cook earlier in the year. Back in July in Scipio Cook's hometown of Austin. Fuentes it represents the Valley Hard, being from Mission, Texas. But this is a guy you need to keep your eye on. He's good. I would imagine he's going to be able to get fights with a record like 8-7-1. But you do not want to sleep on this kid. I mean, the potential of this kid to upset your prospect is just through the roof. Again, with his record at 8-7-1, people aren't going to hesitate to put their opponent in the ring with them. This is a guy with a mediocre record who can beat everyone. He knocked out Scipio Cook. He knocked out Callahan. I just wanted to call the hitman. I call him the prospect killer. The undercard also featured David Limerick of Katy, Texas, who scored a second-round TKO, causing his opponent to quit on the stool after unleashing a series of lethal body shots. Eduardo Garcia, also of Houston, Texas, picked up a very impressive unanimous decision, showing off a great jab, tremendous boxing skill. Donald Reed of Houston, also on the card, took an all-Texas shootout against a fellow Mission, Texas native, Alex Gayton. Gayton was able to go on the road and pull an upset over Kendrick Ball in Massachusetts back in June, but could not continue to play that spoiler as the hometown Reed was able to take the last round in an ultra-competitive fight and take a close competitive decision. Another prospect we want to get into, Clarence Bones Adams, has a new sensation. Clarence Bones Adams is a former super bantamweight champion. He has a super bantamweight prospect of his own, the Beast, Rais Alim, who proved his record to 13-0 with 7 knockouts with a one-sided TKO over ring veteran Derek Wilson. If you haven't gotten a chance to watch this kid, his name is Rais, R-A-E-E-S-E, Alim, A-L-E-E-M. 13-0, 222-pound prospect. I want you guys to keep your eye on him. He is really good. In the other major Texas card in Corpus Christi, the other card that's streamed live on the ESPN app, Mexican WBO super middleweight champ Gilberto Zordo Ramirez successfully defended his belt over the more athletic and equally as rugged Jesse Hart in Philadelphia. Zordo hurt his elbow, and with just one hand, the southpaw nearly knocked Hart down in the final stanza. That 12th round was truly something epic. He took the first fight by very close decision. He took this one by even a more narrow decision, and he probably won the fight in that 12th round, doing so with just one hand. It was a majority decision, 114-114, 115-113, and 116-112. Very, very competitive fight. It could have gone either way. We scored a 15-13 for Ramirez, 7 rounds to 5. But, this was a really difficult fight to score with. I know a lot of people who scored it for Hart. We thought Ramirez just edged it out, but again, really close rounds. On the undercard, one of my favorite fighters, Oscar Mojica, the 115-pounder from Dallas, Texas, who fights everybody tough, spoiled the U.S. debut of the highly touted super flyweight prospect from Mexico, Ruben Vega. Made him settle for a draw in their 6th-round affair, and was lucky to get a draw. Again, we warned everyone on last week's episode of the Lone Star Roundup that Mojica's ability and his strength and his ruggedness is not to be underestimated. He's not to be overlooked. Mojica's got, again, a mediocre record, got a bunch of losses. He's been in the ring with guys like Ernesto Delgadillo, Elton Dari, Jose Martinez, and Antonio Nieves. He has never been stopped, and has given each one of those guys I named, all of them. He gave them a heck of a fight. He gave them all that they could handle. This kid Mojica, again, his record is not sensational. He's from Dallas, Texas. I know him well. He is nobody's tomato can. He's a threat to anyone and everyone at 115. In some other news, the Charlos, Jamel and Jamal of Houston, Texas, are scheduled to co-headline a card in Brooklyn's Barclays Center on Saturday the 22nd. Jamal Charlo was set to take on Willie Monroe. That bout, which we reported yesterday on the website, 3dboxingblog.com, the Texas boxing scene, was in serious trouble. That fight is now off, and we'll get into that. According to WBC President Mauricio Suleiman, Willie Monroe Jr. had an adverse finding in his VADA testing. Again, both Charlos and Charlos, they're still going to fight. Rushing contender Matt Karabov's name is I'm not sure if that's official, but that's what we're being told, that he will take on Jamal Charlo in a 160-pound middleweight fight. Jamel Charlo will defend his 154-pound belt against Tony Harrison of Detroit. So both fighters are still scheduled to fight. The Jamel Charlo fight is unaffected. However, Jamal Charlo will now take on a Russian Matt Karabov, who's most famous for being knocked out by Andy Lee. Again, this is a guy they had to find on sort of replacement to fill in because Monroe had the adverse finding in his VADA testing. So let me know what you guys think. Leave your thoughts, comments below. For the Lone Star Roundup on the Texas boxing scene, this is 3D Boxing signing off, saying thank you and God bless.
Enjoy 3D Boxing vlog videos? Show us some love by clicking the like button. Don't miss a tweet, post, story, or video. 3dboxingblog.com is also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hit the subscribe button now to stay inside the ring.